Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it. But
increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm Rob Genovesi. I am your co-host for this week's show. And, I hope you're tuning in every single week, because every single week on the Master Connector Show, we have tons of great information from superstar guests. Today's show, actually, we have a sponsor for today's show. Today's show is sponsored by Russ Hedge Consulting. You want to transform your business? You want to connect with new customers? Reach out to Russ Hedge at russhedge.com, and he'll get your business going in a new and better direction. Thank you, Russ Hedge. The Master Connector Show, this is all about connecting. And the funny part about this, if you're just joining us, if you've never seen us before, me and my co-host and good friend, Steve Spiro. Steve is the Master Connector. But Steve and I, we met 27 years ago. I mean, we are both introverts. We were both, I'll say I was clueless. I don't know about Steve. Steve had some accomplishments under his belt. He had owned an advertising agency. He owns several degrees of black belt in a couple of different martial arts disciplines. So he had some accomplishments under his belt, although he did have to overcome some things. Maybe he'll tell you about some of that. But one of the things he and I both had to overcome was this painful shyness and not being able to really connect with people or develop relationships. It's something that we had in common, and we learned along the way. We had several of the same mentors along the way. And it's just funny, today we're co-hosting the Master Connector Show. So I know Steve is the Master Connector. I'm not sure that I'm so much a Master Connector, but I've definitely come a long way, as this is what we want to do. We want to inspire you to connect with people, to build relationships, to light the way for people. Like when you show people the way, everybody's looking for somebody to follow. Okay. So when you show people the way, you're going to find some people taking your lead, and you can lead them in a great new direction. But I want to bring on the Master Connector himself, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, Rob G? Hey, listen, you are amazing. And yes, everyone on this show, we are Master Connectors, right? And the idea is here that, you can go from being an introvert like us and become a Master Connector as well. There's no, I don't have the coveted title and exclusive title here, right? Anyone can be a Master Connector. But what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. I am excited to be here. I'm excited about the show. Rob G, you're amazing. We just appreciate having you as co-host now and a friend of 27 years. Crazy how long it's been. And yes, you have come a long way. And today's show is going to be interesting. It's going to be about the 6 degrees of connectedness. Okay. That's a hard word to say. Okay. But 6 degrees of connectedness. And, listen, we're not going to do a new spin on the 6 degrees of separation and the Kevin Bacon game. And that's not the idea here. Today, we're going to go on a journey into the intricacies of forging profound connections in our lives. Right. And as Rob alluded to, that it's all about connection, right? We live in a world that can be a little bit dark and a little bit cold, and sometimes people feel very isolated. So it's all about connection. And the more that I've connected with people, the better connected I feel, right? But today, we're going to explore the art of self-discovery and unraveling techniques to strengthen the vital link between oneself and our inner authenticity, right? And again, one of our pillars of the show is connecting authentically and being authentic and not being, not about pitching, not about putting up a wall, but sharing those vulnerabilities when appropriate, right? But once mastered, we can move outward and delve into the strategies for building meaningful connections with others, unraveling the threads that bind us to friends, family, and colleagues, right? But this journey doesn't stop there. We're also going to ponder the cosmic dance of interconnectedness, right? Understanding the significance of aligning ourselves with the universe our planet and ever-evolving landscape of technology, right? Technology can be completely overwhelming and could also be separating. So this is going to be the interesting dichotomy here of kind of talking about technology and sort of talking about connectedness, right? And not, the connectedness and relationship side, not connected as in like being connected through technology, right? As we navigate through these realms, we'll uncover the profound impact and that cultivating a connection with the broader world as our individual well-being. And what's interesting, it's to me that's what it's all about. It's about our inner peace, our inner self, and well-being. And when you find that you're truly connected in all realms, you feel really at peace with the world, peace with others around you. And so, join us today as we seek to understand why fostering connections with the universe, our planet, technology, and our bliss is not only important, but essential for a harmonious and fulfilling life. So, before I bring up Rob back here, and I just want to say, I don't know if you noticed, but can you just get, Rob did a great job last week hosting solo, and I was in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. When you go on trips, you kind of lose things. Well, I didn't lose my luggage, but I lost my hair. So I don't know if you guys noticed that the hair's gone, right? So, for those that are in the Telly Savalas Kojak, club, I'm who loves you, baby. I'm with you, right? I'm here, but I'd love to know your feedback if you like it with or without hair. Listen, I ain't going back, so hopefully you like it. But anyway, I'm just appreciative of Rob. I'm going to have you come back and bring Terry. But if you're ready, I'd love for you, the community. Again, we're LinkedIn, not LinkedIn lurkers. We're LinkedIn participants. So get in the comments. Tell us where you're from, what city, what state, what country. Get in, tell it, connect with people, right? This is the Master Connector Show, and we want your participation. So we want to hear where you're from. And, type in right now, hashtag let's go. Looks like John Phillips is on with us. Yolanda's on. And Amy Counteract from Master Networks is on with us. So great to see y'all. Hey, Yolanda, we just appreciate you. And John, good friend. Great seeing you, sir. But Rob, I'll pass it over to you so you can bring up Terry.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And love the new look. I mean, this is a look that I have not seen on Steve. I got to tell you, the one thing that depends on is you got a good cranium. Now, I don't. I got a pointy head, so God, please let me keep my hair so you don't have to see my pointy head. But Steve's got a great skull, so it looks good, Steve. But I am so excited for today because we got a special guest for you, as we always do. But the whole idea of connectedness, as Steve was saying, that this is what we're talking about. This is what we learned. I was a solo guy. I did everything alone. But being connected is a whole nother level of achieving fulfillment in life, achieving business goals. Everything you want comes out of being connected. So I'm going to introduce our guest. Terry Bean has a tremendous passion for helping others get better connected to what they seek. He takes time to uncover people's needs and leverages his network and knowledge to see them fulfilled. He spends most of his time as a business growth strategist. He's a sought-after speaker and corporate trainer. And additionally, he spent 15 years producing TEDx Detroit. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Terry Bean. Hey, Terry.
Good day, fellas. How we doing?
Great, man. Good to see you.
Great to have you.
Energy. And I must say, Steve, I think your haircut's fantastic. Big fan. Big fan.
I appreciate it.
You'll find it much easier to maintain. You'll save all kinds of time and money and energy. I've gone fully bald twice because I suffer from the same issue that Rob has, but it's a lot easier, man.
That's great. It's been simple, man. Showering is great. You just, that's it, and traveling was a lot easier. I didn't have to worry about hair products and all that crazy stuff. It was awesome. But anyway, well, good stuff
too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are excited to have you on here, Terry, and we want to talk about self-connection. Okay, so that's going to be our first as we kick off this program, and so put in hashtag self-connection community, and again, we want you in the comments. And by the way, if you have any questions whatsoever for Terry, for Rob, for me, and maybe about my bald head, put it in the comments. We want to hear from you, right? We're LinkedIn participants, right? But Terry, seriously, how do you prioritize self-reflection and introspection in your daily life to strengthen your connection with yourself. Because again, it's all about connecting with yourself first before you really can connect effectively with others.
That's right. Lisa Nichols is famous for saying you can't pour from an empty cup. And in order to not have an empty cup, we need to figure out what fills our cup. And it's not enough to figure it out, but now you got to book time on your calendar every single week to make sure you're doing the things that fill you. I've said for years, man, the single greatest type of inspection is introspection. So what drives you? Answer that question. What makes you happy?
Love that. That's great. That's amazing. And that quote you said, the best type of inspection is introspection. I love that. That's great. That's a notable quote. Definitely write that down, community, for sure. We appreciate you big time. All right, so we're going to move on now to another question here, and it kind of relates, right? So hashtag interpersonal, right? So now we're kind of moving into, like, now that we kind of get a sense of what's going on within ourselves. Now we're going to start to move in the part of interpersonal. And, you know, what's interesting, just a little bit of transparency, and Rob had alluded to it, right? We both, Rob and I, had a lot of growth to do. And I grew up picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic. I commuted into high school, commuted from the suburbs of the New York City to the city. I went to school. There was no community where I went to because everyone was commuters. And the same thing for college, New School Parsons. And literally didn't know how to create relationships, had very few relationships. So I'd be curious to see your take on this. But so here's a question, right, on interpersonal. In your experience, Terry, what strategies have proven effective in building meaningful connections with others, whether in personal or professional relationships?
So there's a handful of them, right? We need to build know, like, and trust. And if that's true, we got to figure out how to build likability faster. And so there's three things that I really, really rely on. Number one is this concept I call after you networking, where it's really let them go first. We're also worried about making a great first impression by what we're going to say. So we sound smart, so we sound likable, so we sound funny, whatever we want to be. That's great, but even better is let them go. So whatever you say actually relates to their world. So that's tip one. Tip two is be who you are. The reason that self-connection, step one, is you guys mentioned authentic connections. How can you connect authentically if you can't even show up authentically? So do that introspection. And then what I always rely on is, we talk about your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So show up, right? You have to appear ready. You have to be present. And, kindness goes an incredibly long way, fellas.
I'm going to tell you something you said there, Terry, on tip number one. As an introvert, a lot of people think it's a shyness thing. They're separate, right? Shyness is a separate problem that I had. I was painfully shy. But as an introvert, I'd much rather sit back and listen to people talk than be the one talking. And that was good news in networking, because when you're saying let the other person go, I was like, oh, I'm all about that. I just ask a question. Hey, so here's my favorite question of connecting with people. So Terry, tell me, how did you come to do what you do? And then I sit back, right? Because you go, well, it started way back when. And I learned a lot just by listening. So as an introvert, I sometimes think we have a bigger advantage in networking because we are better at listening because we don't prefer to talk. Would you agree?
That's an excellent point. And it really is. It's about listening and how can I be of service, right? If you're showing up to a networking event asking, what can I get out of this? Just turn around, get back in the car, go somewhere else, man. If you're going there with the idea of how can I be of service? How can I further someone along? Then you're in the right mindset. And then letting them talk and share their stories, man, they're going to walk away from a conversation with you after that thinking you're the best conversationalist ever. And you talked for like 1.5 out of the 10 minutes, right? It's such a win.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm with everyone here. And what's interesting, right? One of our pillars of our show is being a go-giver. Love Bob Berg and the book, The Go-Giver. And, being others focused. And, again, some transparency about myself, right? Because I was so wounded, I had so much damage that was done as a kid and all these things I went through. I was in self-protection mode, kind of self-absorbed. And it wasn't until I kind of healed myself a little bit that I could realize that, you know what, I could be others focused. And sometimes you could be self-focused, be to yourself and not really care about anyone else. But also there's another side of it, which I've now learned to, which is be truly interested and looking to give and add value. And a lot of times that is absolutely by allowing people to tell their story. I love what you said, Rob. I say it a little different, but same idea. I said, I'd love to hear your story, your journey, not just what you do, right? Because a lot of people often, when you tell that, you say, want to hear your story, they're very focused on their career, which I don't mind, but I love when they get into the backstory, and that's really where you start to, I believe, really connect with people truly, but anyway, so, well, quick reminder here. We're here talking about the 6 degrees of connectedness. And, obviously, if anyone has any questions, feel free to please make sure you put in the comments. We want to hear from you big time, but we're going to move things on here. And we want to talk about universal. So hashtag universal community. Okay. We want to hear, we want you in the comments, but from your perspective, Terry, why is it important for individuals to cultivate a sense of connection to the universe and the world at large?
I think we have this reflection of whatever you call source energy, God, the universe, great spirit, name it however you name it. But we as individuals are a single representation of that whole. And I like to think about it this way, right? We know through science that there are neurotransmitters in our gut. We have a gut brain. We know through neuroscience that there are neurotransmitters in our heart. We have a heart brain. We obviously have a head brain. Everyone's familiar with that. I also believe that there's this cosmic brain that when you're tapped into the universe, and then you can align the downloads that you're getting from here into here, into here, into here, and you're in alignment, you become unstoppable.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, right? So one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich and Master Key to Riches. And in those books, it talks about universal intelligence, right? AKA God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, right? Like you said. And it's so true. And especially when you're connecting with a mastermind group and there's multiple brains and that frequency that you create, that you tap into that higher power, that universal intelligence, it's pretty powerful what can happen for sure. Rob, it looked like you had a question, maybe.
Steve always knows. There must be an expression on my face that's like, Rob wants to say something. So
it's like when you want to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. No, it's not constipation, people. It's not. Just when Terry was talking, and I love that reference, Steve, because we've read a lot of the same books. But when Terry was talking about alignment, and I started to think about the flow of the universe. And I love talking about this stuff because this is the stuff that kind of set me free so much, is that, when I hit my late 40s, we go back to like our late 20s, really, when we met and we started on that self-development journey. And so much that I had to learn. And a lot of it didn't culminate until my 40s when I gained considerably more clarity. But what I really learned, and maybe this is after years of being on Earth, is that I'm in control of nothing. Outside of, how I think and how I treat people, there's very little we have control over. And what I mean by that is controlling revenue, controlling getting clients, controlling business, like controlling what other people do is just pointless. And when I got in alignment with who I am and with what I'm looking to achieve, that flow, and just kind of submit to it, but do my good work and treat people right and raise people up and show the way and just pour value. That's when actually things started happening. And I was like, man, this is so much easier than trying to make it happen. Terry?
It's 100% accurate, right? I've watched Oprah exactly 3 times in my life. Nothing against Oprah, right? It is not about that. But she's on at an inconvenient time for me. One time she had Mike Tyson on, And even Mike Tyson cries on Oprah. I'm just saying, even Iron Mike. But the time that I really watched was the reason I watched the first time, because folks from The Secret, the movie The Secret, were on.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
during the episode, that one got canceled, so I tuned in for episode 2. She talked about the flow of her life. She said that she had gotten fired from the network. She said that she was scratching and crying and doing everything she could to make something happen, like you just said, Rob. And one day she said, all of a sudden, I turned around and I caught the flow of my life. And it's been just easy going downstream ever since. The other reason that this becomes so important is when you get this level of universal connectedness, you start to look at other people and say, wow, we're not different hardly at all. Rob has hair, Steve doesn't. Aside from that, those are the major differences we're looking at right now. Maybe your eye color is a little different. Maybe your height's a little different. But when we start to really look at that connectedness, look at that similarity, all that negativity, all that arguing, all that fighting starts to go away. We become cheerleaders for one another because we realize there is no other.
Love that. That's great. Yeah, and a lot of this we're talking about is, being grounded, right? And so we're going to talk about kind of earth, and I want you to type in hashtag earthly, because this ties in nicely and perfectly what we're talking about here. So in what ways do you actively contribute to the well-being of our planet, right? And how does this contribute to your own sense of connection to earth?
You were kind enough to share the questions before the show popped on, and I skimmed through them really quickly, and I was like, I'm a bad recycler at best, right? I think that's an important element. I've been better at it than I am right now. I have a car. It's not a huge engine with big emissions. But what I do systematically, and this is like the most simple thing I think there is, for years, my wife would be like, there's a spider, kill it. And I'm like, I'm not a spider killer, right? So I have my spider relocation program where I go and release the spider. When I'm out doing the leaf blowing or whatever with the electric leaf blower, I'm always mindful about leaving the anthills, leaving the animals. I'm a big fan of leaving people and spaces better than you found them. So if I'm at the beach, I'm going to clean up some beach area. If I'm walking by in someone's office and there's garbage on the floor, I'm going to pick it up and throw it out, because that's just like a mantra, and I don't normally add the spaces, but for the point of this conversation, leaving people better than we found them. I want to make sure that the next interaction that anyone I communicate with is better than the one they had before. And I think there's a real nice ripple effect that happens as a result of that.
I love that.
I was kind of laughing a little bit, not at what you were saying, but the similarities, because the same thing with the spiders, and sometimes we get these crickets in the house, and my kids are older now, but they're like, kill it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna kill it. Like, capture it, set it free. And it sounds a little weird to a lot of people that you wouldn't kill like a bug or something like that. But I kind of feel the same way. Everything adds energy to the world we live in, and when you take that away, you've taken away energy in some way. The whole idea of the butterfly's wings affecting, monsoons or climate somewhere else, right? The butterfly effect. Why mess with that? The world was created for this energy and flow we're talking about. When you do something against it, to me, you're creating a rift in something that shouldn't have been there.
That's right.
I love that. Yeah. And listen, not everybody is big into like, the recycling and all those things, and I've done some service projects where we've cleaned up beaches, but even just being connected to the earth, as in like appreciating what's around us, right? We live right on the water. I get to look over my shoulder and I see the water right there, and just appreciate, just connecting with Mother Earth. And to me, that's just we're talking about connectedness now, and we don't have to necessarily be like a big, what's the word I'm looking for? Where
environmentalist.
Environmentalist. That's the word I was thinking of. Kind of, a different word, but yes. Anyway, let's keep it rolling here. I got one last question, and we're going to talk about bliss a little bit. Blissful, right? So hashtag blissful, and some of the information you sent me prior to the show, you wrote bliss. So I want to touch on that before we close. We're about to close here, but I want to sneak this one in. So Terry, from your perspective, why is it crucial for an individual to identify and pursue activities that bring them joy and bliss?
It's interesting. This whole thing was born out of a TED Talk from 2009, this conversation we're having. And I knew what the 5 degrees were real easily, but I deliberated on what that 6th degree was for quite some time. And bliss to me was like the highest form of actualization of joy, happiness, fun, and what life really should be. And so as I thought about bliss and what that meant, I realized that it's incredibly subjective. What brings you bliss, what brings Rob bliss, what brings anyone on the show bliss, and everybody else probably going to be a little bit different. And I love that part, because that means there's plenty enough of the things that will bring each of us bliss for us to go after it, to chase it with reckless abandon. The other thing is, and I've said this for years, and I've said it about peace, I've said it about love, I've said it about happiness or joy. Once you find these things inside of you, you find them everywhere you go. So taking the time to know what brings you joy or happiness or bliss or whatever you want to call it, taking the time to understand what that is, gives you freedom to say no to the things that aren't that. It keeps you focused, right? The successful people that you would talk about, the folks that Napoleon Hill wrote about, they all had a definiteness of purpose, was the word Hill used. That's and right. When you have that, it allows you to make very informed yeses quickly, and everything else can be a no. And you can do that with the comfort and confidence that, hey, man, I'm here doing me.
Awesome. Thanks. That's a great note to end on about the bliss. And, I know some people think, oh, that's that woo-woo stuff. And that used to be me. And I mean, sometimes it comes with age, but it doesn't always come with age, because I know people that are, older than me. You'd think they'd be wiser, but they're not. And they don't discover this stuff unless you really learn it. So I appreciate you hitting on that, because that bliss part, honestly, everybody's after it. They just don't know that they should be after it. And so, but there's a lot of things that have to take place. And unfortunately, we get wrapped up in the world of doing business. But, look, this is the thing that is our good work. Hopefully, audience, you are doing your good work. And maybe it's your business, maybe it's your job, but either way, always make sure you're adding value and creating the bliss in your life, like Terry was saying. But Terry, I know you have an offer for our audience today. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, along those lines of chasing your bliss, a year and a half ago, I wrote a book. The book is called Finding Harmony in the Fucks You Give. It just seemed like a clever and fun title to me. Sorry if I'm swearing on this show that doesn't have swearing, even though I'm talking to a New Yorker. And inside of the book is 22 different exercises that really help us lock in our mindset, really helps us understand what matters most to us. And so there's a workbook, like a compendium that goes with it. So I've got a download at trybeing.com, Finding Harmony Workbook, trybeing.com, Finding Harmony Workbook. And you can go and you can download it. You can do these exercises and figure out what matters most to you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Terry. Appreciate that.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're gonna Terry, we just want to thank you so much for being on the show here. And we're going to have you go into the green room. So we just thank you again for coming on the show. If you want to stay behind while we finish up the show here, just have a few things to say, but you really came and brought the juice with you. So very much appreciate you. And what's the best way for okay, well, we're good to go, but all right. Definitely connect with Terry on LinkedIn for sure.
Yeah,
but
and
again,
I just want to say, you want to jump in there, Steve, for a second, because they also need to find out about another book. And that's Steve's book, everybody. Look, you want to pick this book up, The Tao of a Master Connector. You see the black belt on there? That's Steve's. That's one of Steve's many black belts in several different disciplines. But look, it's not a book about martial arts. It's a book about a guy who overcame lots of obstacles to win and succeed and connect. This is a great book. I want you to pick it up. I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm going to hand it over to Steve to close out the show.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, thank you, Rob. It was a labor of love, and I hope it's my love letter to my higher power, to my God, and also to anyone that reads it. So, but we're excited, community. Thank you so much, community, for showing up today. We had a lot of visitors here, and I just want to call out Denise because she came in a little after I gave shout outs to some people. So appreciate you, Yolanda, John. I'm going to forget some of Amy, of course, and Andy LaRusso. Great seeing you, sir. But just appreciate everyone on here. Terry, appreciate you. We're here because of you. So make sure to join us next week, episode 149. I can't believe it. February 7th. Same bat time, same bat channel, 1 p.m. EST, or I believe it's 10 a.m. PST. And the topic title is Achieving Success Regardless of Your Challenges with Olivia Atkin. It's going to be a credible show, so don't miss it for sure. And I want to call out again a special thanks to our sponsor of the show. This particular episode, Mr. Russ Hedge. Just appreciate you big time. Just so appreciative of Russ and what he does. And so look into him and his show, and he does a lot of great work. But listen, and why Russ and some of the other folks are on the show is because I believe we share some of those same sentiments about wanting to be a light in this world, right? We live as I alluded to before, we live in a world where there's a darkness, there's loneliness, there's a separation. A lot of people now, even though we're coming back to work, there's still people that are working remotely, and remote is great, but it also is isolating sometimes, right? And we lose that sense of community. So make sure you get out there and just encourage people. Make sure that we always remember to shine our light, uplift and encourage one another. And again, as I said, and I always say, make sure, we'll see you next week, but make sure to be the light.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.